Welcome back to Just Your Average Joel podcast. We're going to go over, last week we went over step 4. We're going to recap, go into step 5, but Joel is trying to get to the bottom of why people aren't having this essential psychic change in the 12-step programs, an extraordinary experience that he had, and we're trying to put our finger on it. And now I give you Joel.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Joel. We are going to be talking about the 5th step. Well, we're going to recap a little bit. I'm going to get into a little run through 1, 2, 3. I mean, why, and just what Jen led to. Why are people not having this spiritual experience? Why? You know, it's a very peculiar thing when you hear people talk in the program, and you'll hear people talk about spiritual experience and being connected or a relationship, and it seems like it happens, I don't know, I guess like, and I don't want to be kind of rude about it, but it's almost like God pops out of your ass at like 12 or something, or they do all the steps and then all of a sudden something happens. And what they're missing, and what is being missed, and it's listen, it's right there in black and white in the book. Nobody's hiding this from you. How it goes about in the 3rd step, when they talks about on page 63, just skipping through, obviously we need a higher power, we're hopeless, got to be a power that'll bring about an essential psychic change. It's going to have to be a supernatural thing. It's going to have to be a little bit bigger than, right, just some little power, maybe a human power. Oh, and it points to that over and over and over. If you're seriously, I couldn't know human power, can't return through human power. So we get to this place where you make that decision. It says that that there's a consciousness happens, that we are reborn. It says we begin to experience the consciousness of God. We are. It says our fears fall from us. On page 63 is best place to look at that, and it says we were reborn. And there's a big thing about being reborn. Reborn, if you look at other people, pastors, there's a lot of people that talk about being reborn, and they talk about, in fact, Christ himself said, you cannot see the kingdom of God unless you're reborn. So and what are we doing here, really? We're trying to, what is God's will for me in my life? What is God's will for me in my life? Well, the way the 12 steps are set up is we take away what isn't God's will in our life. See, how I believe it when they say you're created in his image and likeness. This is how I'm created. All the things that I've become over the last X amount of years are what I've piled on it. So what we're really doing is uncovering who God created me to be and who he wanted me to be originally. So I'm really your parents, and it really, it's not their fault, but it's like, watch out for this, be careful about this. So, and then if you have the peculiar twist of an alcoholic and the twisted mind, the fearfulness and the acting, and I act this way and I act that way, and I become more and more separated from who I really am. Who I really am is a loving child of God, created in God's image and likeness. So what we're trying to do is uncover that. So that 3rd step is very important. Now you think, right, when you talk about, if I sincerely do this, and it says we've thought long and hard about the 3rd step, that we could utterly now abandon ourselves to God. Sometimes it says a big feeling was felt at once. But when I get sincere about that, you think the loving God, our Father, or however you want to put it, he wants to be close to me. He's there for me. Don't you think these are the obstacles in my path that when it talks about on 72, we've done the inventory and we're trying to get a new relationship with our Creator. You think God's like having a stumbling block here? God's wanting to reveal that to me. But the sincerity, and that's a big part of this whole thing, the sincerity of me wanting to have a relationship with God brings about me being able to see what is blocking me from this God, right? So page 72, on the top of 72, can you read some of the stuff, Jen? On page 72 in the big book, it's really, because it's after you've done your 4-step. We've gone through the 4-step. Now listen, in your 4-step, it was talking a lot about prayer, right? It was talking about the 4-step prayer. Pray for me not to be angry about this person. Reveal this to me. I was shocked that I've been sober over 30 years. I was reading it, and it says, in meditation, we ask God in each certain, and they're talking about sex situations, what he thinks about this. And it says, if you're whatever, the answer will come, almost like 11-step stuff, where you're praying to God when you're going through the 4 steps. So your relationship, just so you know, is already started. You're in a relationship with God. The fourth step is part of that relationship. I'm going to God. I'm saying, okay, God, these are the things. Help me uncover. What would you want me to be? How do you want me to live? And starting to uncover this stuff. God's making that possible.
Well, it's just what church was this morning about being restored. Who's restoring you, and what are you being restored to?
Exactly.
Step 2.
Exactly. So when we get into that 72, can you read the top of 72 just so?
Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path.
Exactly.
Go ahead. We've admitted certain defects. We've ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We've put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out.
And that's what we're talking now. We're getting into the fifth step. And the fifth step is, okay, one thing I look at about with the fifth step is, first of all, I'm looking at and I don't really even, I'll tell people in a meeting right now, I don't really trust any of this now. The big book doesn't really ask you to trust anybody. It says, trust God, clean house, help others. And I love the story that the girl shared not long ago. It's a friend of ours, and she talked about sharing something in confidence when she did her fifth step in the prison. When she was in prison, the girl shared it with everybody in the dorm, and she was kind of ridiculed for it, and she was like kind of outcast and everything. And and of course she was doing it with the right intent though. So God took that and turned it into, maybe everybody didn't need to know that. It was for her to get over herself and get over the world of thought. So here we are trying to uncover this stuff. It says you're sick as your secrets. And really, there's another one with the fifth step. If you don't take a fifth, you probably drink a fifth. It's something that has to be done. And the reason why I'm doing it, why am I doing it? Because I'm trying to get a relationship with God. And why am I doing it also? Because I'm being told by God, if these are the directions, I ask to be turned my will and my life over the care of God, right? Now, what does that entail? That means do a fourth step. That means God's saying, it's not good enough that I just share this amongst me and God. It's that I share, there's a scripture, share your sins amongst one another. Now, I don't even know if God's going to take that and help somebody else with that. I have no idea what that means. I'm just following directions to have, and it's weird. In the big book, in the fifth step, it talks about if you're a Catholic, go to the proper authorities. So this is a lot about a confession. I'm not so sure, for me personally, and I know this is going to be probably controversial, but a lot of people, I'm not so sure, and it hasn't been the case for me, that your feedback is so important in this, or what you know, or patterns. I think the biggest part of it is that I'm following directions, that I'm sincere, that I'm thorough, and that when I go and when I hear myself, you ever have a great idea? Sounds wonderful, right? Until you talk about it, right? Until you get it out. It's like, and some of the worst thing, oh, I'm so bad. And then you share that out, and maybe you're not so bad after all. So the problem with the alcoholic centers in their mind, and it's the magnificent magnifying mind that we have. So that's why it's important. This is part of the ego deflation and depth, getting this stuff out. It's not so much what you learn in Alcoholics Now and 12-step. It's what you unlearn. It's what getting rid of all this stuff that's in your head. Mm-hmm. So the fifth step also, when we get into so here you are, you're asking God to come into your life. You're basically taking the stuff that is objectionable. I like to say too, you're separating yourself from the true self to the ego self. You're kind of splitting. What does it say in the book? It says something about living the dual life, because the principle behind it is integrity.
Yep.
So how are we going to be?
Alcoholic's very much an actor. There's a stage character, the one he presents to the world.
Mm-hmm. Anything else on that?
No.
Well,
that's what it says.
Well, it's an oxymoron, because it's like you can't act spiritual. See what I'm saying? So if you're going to have spirituality, you're going to have to stop. You're going to have to drop the act.
Acting.
So the act, and the actor can never be as strong as the authentic person. It's like almost like a tree. The tree that bends and can and go and be is much stronger than something that's rigid, stiff, fake, plasticky. So we're trying to get rid of that. We're trying to get to the real who you are. The real authenticity of what, and have it integrated, and that's where a lot of people on a fifth step, one of the big effects of a fifth step are starting to get your head where your feet are. Usually you're all over the place, all disjointed and stuff, and then when you share all this stuff out, all of a sudden you kind of brought into the now, and that's what brings about this experience on page 75. So 72, it says, it kind of opens up into the fifth step, and it talks about, and then it goes through basically who, you want to be careful. You don't want to be flippant about it. You want to share it with somebody. You want to have the best, idea of who to share it with. But, most of the people that are coming in, they're not that well. I mean, who you might think to share. But the overall thing is that you're doing this because God wants you to. And God will make a bad thing and turn it into a good thing. Just like my alcoholism. My alcoholism was the worst thing that ever happened, turned into one of the best things that ever happened to me, because God's taken that and turned it into a good thing. So what does it talk about when we pocket our pride?
We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we've taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to fear the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe.
That's great. All right, so there it is. Boom. You're connected to God. I mean, we're talking fifth step here. We're not talking. Third step talked about the consciousness already. Fourth step, we were praying to God, kind of help me with this work step. Or if you want to say the fourth step, the work steps are like the even number steps, and the spiritual experience are all seeming to be 1, moment of clarity, 3, page 63, page 75, that's the fifth step, a psychic change in 7, ninth step, they talk about, of course, all the things that happen in the ninth step. So it's really the odd steps are the result and of the prior steps. Every step brings you to the next step. But so here it is. You're sincerely crying out to God. It's not like you had to wait very long. You notice that? You notice it's not like a long period of time here. It's like third step, I made a decision. Fourth step, I did some work. Fifth step, God answers. God answers that quick. I mean, when it's sincerity, when it's real, God reveals himself to you, and that is huge right there, that you're going to be and there'll be different experiences about that. You'll hear a lot of people say they felt the sense of belonging, that they were in AA. That's a different experience than what we just read. Just so you know, that is a different path. That's a different experience. I don't care. You can be, that's how it happened for me. I get it, but that's not that experience. That experience is that you feel the nearness to your Creator. Now, when you go in, it's going to go into the sixth step, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it says, we thank God from the bottom of our heart for knowing him better. When they go back into a sixth step, that's on another page or so. But this is where you're forming and connecting with God, Anything you got to say today?
Well, the experience, he who faces himself is freed from himself. When Byron Katie said, what can anybody say about me that I haven't already seen or admitted about myself? You're walking a free man after the fifth step. I remember pulling up to the gas station, pumping gas, and I looked over and the other guy was pumping gas. And I was just thinking, I had never felt like this before. And after doing the fifth step for the first time, it's like, that's just some guy pumping gas. He doesn't have to know about the 21 mental institution unless I choose to tell him. But it was like the first time it was just like mano a mano. And really that feeling comes very strongly. It came for me in the hour that I spent alone with God after my fourth step. I spent that hour with God, and I did thank him from the bottom of my heart. And there were things that I didn't want to tell my sponsor, but I feel like I made a pact with God. I was gonna, it's like, up until this point, have I really given anything of myself in the steps? I made a decision. I've turned my life over to God. I told you last week, the third step, I felt like God was waiting with a wrecking ball. And as soon as I got on my knees and said, take it, he's like, there's nothing to work with. We're starting over. Exactly. I did my fourth step. And I remember meeting my sponsor, and there were some things I didn't want to tell her about myself, things about the kind of mother I was and how I felt about myself in my drinking. But this was between me and God. And I was a slave to what you thought of me. And, exactly. It's like you can't save your ass and your face at the same time. And I had to pick one. Exactly. I had to get over that. I had to get over myself. And you are just another form of me. And I didn't care what you thought. It mattered what God thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you'll hear people double down I heard it not too long ago, 8th and 9th step, and they're like, you can't do that without a sponsor. They make such an emphasis on the people part and the emphasis on the sponsor part. The most important part about this step is the God part. Just so you know, the most important part of the whole thing is the God part. It is every single time. It's about the God part. It's about your commitment, your sincerity, and the God part. And what is the ultimate objective of all this, right? Is just what you shared, right? Is to get over the world of self, the world of ego, the world built in thought. We're trying to move from the thought world into the spiritual world. So that is a big part of the setup on the 5th step, that, you know, you're getting over what other people's reactions of it are, what they think about it, what they think about you. So that's where we're really trying to go with this. Getting over me, getting over self. You know, getting over self. How are we going to get over? I always say Alcoholics Anonymous is a great place to get over yourself. And you're always going to find that you're the one, and the responsibility of that is like, I'm the one in this 5th step. I'm the one that did all this stuff to me. Nobody really did anything to me. You know, even the things that have happened to me, that maybe when I was young or whatever, the idea that I carried them for all this time, the idea that, you know, my pride carried that. That thing happened one instant in my life. So if we're going to break life down to moments instead of living in the past and living dragged out over all this time, you're going to have to get this stuff out of you and realize that I'm the problem in this. And a lot of the 5th step for me was my pride, my gluttony, my greed. Who was the responsible factor in this thing was me. And so if it's me, thank God it's me, because now I'm not a victim anymore. It is a big part of that, that there's something I can do about it. And sharing this out.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
Oh, I mean, I spoke fluent victimese before I did a 4th step. I mean, you know, I'd never looked at where was I selfish, dishonest. A lot of my dishonesty was, you know, I wanted a grapefruit tree to give me oranges, and a grapefruit tree only gives you grapefruits, folks. You know, hate to tell you, but a lot of that, you know, I was angry at my dad he was a 17-year-old heroin addict. You know, I was trying to get something out of him that he didn't have to give, and so when I got honest about whom I thought, it wasn't personal. So a lot of the 4th step helped me come on the other side of even the things that I was truly, I guess, a victim. I mean, I was a child, you know, but you know, it just helped me get a different perspective. Even about my mom dying, when I realized, you know, it's probably the most merciful thing that God did was take my mother. She was a 17-year-old heroin addict. And so the 4th step, it gives you that, what you talked about with Chuck C. when he said, you know, I'm in the same chair, same house, with the same wife and the same job. And before I took the steps, I was in hell. After I take the steps, I'm in heaven. Nothing changed externally. What changed? I got a new pair of glasses. And the 4th step and the 5th step gave me a whole new perspective on myself and my life. And I was so grateful to God. It was a gift to see all of that different. You know, it's like that Jennifer will always drink again. That victim, angry, self-pity, you know, little orphan Annie we always joke about, you know, that girl will always drink again. So here's where that transformation starts happening.
Exactly. And that experience that you talked about, that it's almost, and it's funny, it says our fears fall from us. They do, but they're not gone. It's like a bump. The spiritual experiences are like, just like it said in the 3rd step, we lose fear today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. It gives me that boost so I can go into the next step, so I can move forward. It's almost like you're drowning, and it's like, oh, but you come up and you got a little piece of air, and you see, oh, there's the light. The lighthouse is there. And then you kind of go back down into it, and then you come back up and you see the light again. It's like, oh, there's something. Okay, I am moving in the right direction. Yeah. Oh, God is showing me. God is revealing himself to me. So I'm moving in the right direction. I did that because of certain reasons that God was telling me.
And it's funny because it says to sit for an hour after. And I remember typical Jennifer at, you know, minute 57. And I said, you know, just follow directions for once in your life. Sit down for the full 60. Exactly. And it seems silly, but in that 3 minutes, God, I had a revelation. I just busted out crying, and I had a moment with God, and it was like an instant reward for my obedience.
Exactly. And that's in the 6th step, which says we go carefully over the last 5 proposals. We go, have we skipped on anything? Have we been thorough? Have we followed directions? I mean, that's like the most impossible thing for an alcoholic. It's always like we got to put our twist on. That's why a lot of people are winding up when I go and say spirituality, the fourth dimension's in Indiana, and you're going to California, because you're putting your own twist on it. You know, it's okay if you want to put another twist on it, but don't expect the result of what we just read there. Don't expect that you're going to feel the nearness to your Creator, like walking hand in hand on the broad highway with the Creator of the universe. If that experience is going to happen for you, you might get some kind of experience. You might get
like they say about baking a cake. If you eat this cake and you love this cake and you want this cake, you have to follow the directions specifically to get this cake. You start changing it, and which typical alcoholics, they want to change it, improve it. They've got a all new way of doing the steps. What's wrong with the steps right out of the big book? It worked for, they want to, it's just funny how
exactly.
The ego. Well, you said we're going to improve the perfection that God gave us. I feel like,
progressive. It's always the progressive.
Are regressive.
The so-so progressive is regressive, because the way it was originally intended was always the best way. Anytime they start adding to it, and it's funny, like I said about it can be different. Listen, it says the words can be optional, whatever, but there's certain basic tenements, or whatever you want to say, that are a certain thing. And yes, absolutely, for the first time, I'm following directions. God's saying, go tell somebody else this stuff, and be like, but God's telling me. It's like when people talk about 8 and 9 and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, by now your spirit's come alive. God's telling you to go do this. And if outside people are telling you to do stuff, you ain't there. This hasn't happened for you. This is not happening. That you've not had a spiritual awakening. You're not connected to God. It amazes me, because that spiritual experience that they're talking about 5, think about where and it is jumping ahead a little bit. When you get into 10, 11, they're talking about entering into the world of spirit and communicating with God, and all this stuff's going on. Look, it started happening way back here. Do you understand the spiritual experience, the connection? How are people doing 8 and 9? 8 and 9 when they haven't been changed? So where did that change happen? Well, here it starts. Here it is. Here is evidence right here that you're walking hand in hand. Not, I'm a member of AA, man. I felt like I thought I was an alien before this happened, and I did it with the guy, my fifth step. It wasn't my sponsor. It just started coming out. And I walked away from that situation with that. It was almost like that blockage. I felt all that stuff off me, and I could see, I could just feel God's presence. I was like, I knew I did the right thing. I knew I did what God wanted me to do. And it talks about looking at the world, eye to eye. Your head kind of comes up. You're like, I know I'm trying to do the right thing. I know maybe it wasn't perfect, maybe it wasn't, but it was sincere and it was thorough. Yeah. And God made it good, So I know that was my spirit. And that spiritual experience brings you into that 6th step. How are you gonna really, look at the last 5 proposals, as it talks about in the 6th step, right? Sit home quietly for an hour.
And usually, I always get a phone call during that hour. Oh, the sponsee always calls. There's the one thing I didn't want to tell you. I want to tell you before I get up from this hour. And, so... But it is, because it's an act of your own will, too. There's nobody sitting there looking, did I sit for an hour? Exactly. Am I looking at this is between me and God. And a lot of what happens is what you talked about, going from predatorial to altruistic. For me, I remember having that feeling. I was going to visit my grandparents, and it was the first time. Every time I went home to my grandparents, I always, even though I was an adult with children, I always saw them as, when I go, they take me out to dinner, they do stuff for me. And it was like, I went home, and it's like, what can I do for them? My grandmother's older. Let me do the dishes. Let me take care of her. What can I do for them? That change had started happening. Yeah. Exactly. Went from a child, it's like when you the 6 and 7 talks about that, going from a child,
Well, they talk about humility being the underlying principle of all 12 steps. Each one of them, ego, deflation, and depth. Every time you admit, every time you make that decision, every time you turn, every time you do the work, every time you're submitting yourself to that God. Yeah. And every time you do that, God gets bigger, you get smaller through that process. And it's a lot about faith. People talk about the 11th step. Listen, what is the 11th step a lot about? It's a lot about faith. It's a lot about walking in this, bringing it, like you're saying, bringing it and letting God fill you back up. Not you wondering that let me get. No, you're starting to live a life that's starting to turn.
And it's funny because you hear in the program a lot, third step, oh, I give it, I take it back, I give it, I take it back. And so a lot of the giving it is that getting flipped. It's not that I'm starting to bring it. I'm like you said when we got in a relationship, it's like, well, if you want something in the relationship, bring it. And then it's guaranteed to be there. And that's how it should be in every area of my life. I bring it. It's not this insecure looking to get something from, what does it say in 6 and 7? I'm trying to suck more out of life than is possible, or do me. Now I'm not looking for what I can get, but what I can bring, and in the giving I am receiving.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's where all this starts.
And when you get off track, when I get off track and I've had to get back on, it's like just through a quick run through, it's like third step, I'm off track, making a decision to turn my will over my life. It's not just this little decision you're making. There is a movement towards that. It's the decision, it's the inventory, it's seeing it, it's going, sharing it out. There's a process of like unclutter, you know what I mean? And recognizing what it is that got me there. My pride, my gluttony, my greed, in these situations that I get myself in, these character defects. And that's mostly my fifth step nowadays is truly a pride, gluttony, the 7 deadlies.
Yeah, like Sandy Beach said, if you're not being run by God, you're being run by your 7 deadlies. You're either being run by flesh or spirit.
Yep. And that's what happens. And that's why I say you get sick of yourself, because every time you do the inventory and come back to it and have to share it out, it's like, oh, there I am again. It's like, oh, it's me again. It's like the culprit. It's always me. It's always back to self. It's always me acting out on my pride, my gluttony.
How did I set the ball rolling? What was my mistake? Where am I selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and afraid?
Right. And it says we're chronic malcontents. I shared that last week, right? Yep. So if I'm a gluttonous, right? Gluttony is being more. I can't be satisfied. So if I'm walking around sober and can't be satisfied, well, I'm not going to probably stay sober. It's not going to. It's going to be untenable. It's not going to be enough. So it's not going to be enough. And then my pride says, it doesn't really apply to me. It's like the fifth step. It is a chip at my pride when I even say, okay, God's telling me in the fifth step, it's saying to admit, we admit to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And I'll get into exact in a minute. But it's so part of me saying, yes, it applies to even Joel. And I had a bright light experience. Like, after that I fell off and then I formally went through the steps. So it was like,
it says the ego on rampage balks at investigation, and it gives the box. One is I would have never done that if he didn't do this. Right. It's got the box in there. The excuses for why I acted badly.
Well, that's why pride's on the top. They usually I explained this to somebody. I said, listen, when they list your 7 deadlies, pride's on the top, wrath is on the bottom. So usually what happens is pride says, listen, I don't have to look at the rest of them. So then once you get through the pride a little bit, then you see you got...
Other than drinking, I'm a really nice guy. That's one
amazing.
of the box.
You're so amazing, right? Except for being a drunk and a crackhead.
That's what I used to think. Other than alcohol and other than being a crackhead, I'm a well-adjusted adult. Exactly. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, how's that fit? So you go through the pride. Once you get past the pride, then I guess your gluttony, greed. Now, usually how character defects work, I use my pride, my gluttony, my greed, because I'm lacking faith, right? I'm not going to God. I'm lacking faith. So my character defects, I'm acting in this person that we're talking about in the fifth step, the other guy. And the other guy, when all of my character defects don't work, then I'm mad. Then I'm angry. So then I want to get you. And usually I'm going to blame you. I'm going to say, oh, see, you did this. I would have done this. So I did all this stuff. So it's like this whole big loop that we're trying to get out of the loop.
I just remembered that too. It's victim. It's, I'm so messed up. I'm screwed up. This isn't going to work for me. Then the pride. Well, I'm a good person. Other than you're right. It's like that cycle.
It's a loop. It's a loop. And we're trying to break out of the loop. Yep. That's a big part of
rationalization. What did Sandy Beach say? It's a rational lie, but the only one that believes it is me.
Yeah, a rational lie. It's rational.
Rationalized.
Yeah, it's rationalized for me. And then it gives you an excuse to do certain things, and I don't want to get into certain people that do it, but I've seen people, it's like they make up a story, and I know once that story starts, I'm like, oh, this guy's going to get it, because they're absolving themselves through the story. Yeah. They're saying the story. So now it gives them the ability, or it relieves them. It relieves them of the responsibility of doing whatever you're doing. Well, that's not integrity. Okay, so integrity is none of that. Integrity is doing the right thing for the right reason, because
no matter what,
for to not get anything, or because it's the way it should be. Yeah. And then God takes care of everything else. So integrity, fifth step is huge. Integrity. It's a big part of your spiritual experience, and without it, you're not going to be able to do the sixth step.
Integrity, the inside and the outside match.
Everything matches, integrated.
Matches up. I am who I am everywhere.
What was it? It was Gandhi. Gandhi said the natural man. Mm-hmm. He says he thinks one thing, he says another, and he does another thing. He's talking about the dual selves, and how people they say one thing, think another, and they're doing something else. He says the spiritual man says, does, and thinks all in the same thing. Yeah. They're kind of integrated, which is integrity. It's all integrated in the same moment. And when I was talking about the exact nature, I want to say something about that. The exact nature sometimes too for some people, and I remember people bring this to me, is something that they might have done. See, the exact nature of it is also how you felt about it. It's almost like, and this could be something that maybe they beat somebody or hurt somebody, and they're like, not only did they hurt them, they felt good about hurting them. So there was a feeling behind it that really made them feel bad. And what was the exact nature? Like, did I steal from my brother or do something to make him? Well, was it just the stealing? Was it just the theft, or was it the theft to wreck his reputation, to get back at his? Why? I'm just making up stories, but I'm just saying, what was the crime exactly? What was the exact the nature of it? Because the nature sometimes brings out is a little bit deeper than just I stole something. I stole something. I stole something. And why did I steal? And why was I?
Or the big one is like, this is what I used to go to Walmart, and I'm like, they got some nerve charging this much for an eyeliner. I throw it in my bag. Now because the man is charging more than they, and I justify stealing. All those stories.
Justifying rationalization. So I remember a guy saying this, and he talked about it was
like they owed me something. And
it was something that somebody shared with me. Actually, he was saying a guy. I guess he had a guy that had a sex act, and he said, for money, and he was smoking crack, and he says, and the thing is that the way I felt about it, that's what disturbed him the most. That he felt a certain way. He goes, but if I rubbed my penis on a bumper, so it probably felt good. You know what I'm saying? So that was the exact nature of not only what happened, that this happened, but that he felt a certain way about it. So that's where he felt his guilt. That's where he felt his shame to tell somebody else and to say something to somebody else like that. It's like, that, you don't want to, and then to walk away from that and know, listen, it doesn't really matter what that guy thinks. It's almost like the ninth step too. When you're doing the ninth step, you're not doing the ninth step for forgiveness from them. I heard people say, I'm getting forget. No, you're doing this because God's telling you to do this. This is what God's telling you to do. It's not so much worrisome about what happens, how it happens, what they say about it. Like there's going to be some great answer, and they might give you something great. You might share out your fifth step, and the guy says, hey, that sounds like, and they point out something. But overall, always remember that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. That God's sending these people. God's sending you somebody. If you're doing this proper, if you're really sincere, God's sending these people in your life. God gets all the glory. When we get into the 10th step, it says there's already been a lot said about the one who has all knowledge and all power. So God should get all the glory, man. Not any of this other stuff. Because every time you start giving it to your sponsor, the person that was sent, or anything like that, you're diminishing the process of the 12 steps. You're diminishing your spiritual experience. You're not getting over the world of thought and people, and you're hanging on. You're locking back into the very thing we're trying to unlock. We're trying to get away from that stuff. So it is huge. Fifth step is huge. Sixth step, obviously we'll talk more about the sixth step next week. And sixth step is elongated in the step book. Everybody's always upset about the big book, about the fifth and sixth step. And really, if you're on a roll, like what's happening here when she read that fifth step and you have that spiritual experience and you get that bump, you run right into the sixth step and you want to do this. The elongated version that they talk about in the step book is when you've been sober a while and you're like picking and choosing. I mean, and that's been my experience. That once I was sober a little while, it was like I didn't have as much of a roll going on. I had more of a trudge than I did that that initial, when I went through 4, when I had the spiritual experience in 3, 4, and I had a spiritual in 5, and I felt that nearness to my Creator, I came home. I thank God from the bottom of my heart, and I really recognized what it was. I'm like, okay, God, I want these things taken out, root and branch, and go into the 7th step. When I got sober for a longer period of times, what would happen in the elongated version of that is sometimes you feel like, maybe I can fix this a little bit. Once you function in a little bit, once you get a little sober and you got things, you kind of feel like, and that's what happens to the people that are higher bottom drunks, I think. I think if they really don't get to that place of true surrender, a lot of sincerity. And I think by sincerity, and I'll admit this, it's been harder in elongated times than it was in that original time going through. It was all like, oh man, please, what I mean?
Unbearable pain.
Unbearable. I just got delivered from hell. Thank you, God. He let me out
like
of the gates
it says, you're angry enough to murder. You're lustful enough to when you're suffering with character defects at that level. But after you've been sober for a while, maybe you're not stealing from Walmart. Exactly. Maybe you're not so angry. And so it's almost like it's just not.
They're seemingly more manageable.
Yeah.
The delusion. I'm back in the delusion of thinking, I can manage a little bit. I can't manage shit. I can't manage anything. God has to manage my life. God has to run my life, and I have to be obedient to God. So obedience shows care. Obedience is rewarded. God always, listen, if you go even in the Bible, listen, God always rewarded obedience. And God, not people, not the meeting, not the group, not anybody else, God himself. When you know you're a loving son of God or a loving daughter of God, the creator that created the universe, that solves a lot of problems.
It does. And then you're not subjected to a lot of this stuff in the program because the people will never be satisfied. You'll have to keep giving and doing. And, when you have God in your life, you don't have to subject yourself to a lot of the stuff that, I don't know, I twist myself into a pretzel doing stuff for, it is different. It's I do what I do because God wants me to do. I do it joyfully. I love doing it. It's just a different experience. I'm not trying to get anything.
Well, how are you going to ever be a fresh how are you ever going to be autonomous in alcohol? How are you going to be in a group of people and stand up and be accounted for if you're sucked into the group of sheep? So you're a sheep with all them. How are you ever going to stand there with God? Because believe me, you're going to have to stand with God many and many a time. It talks about even about your sobriety, and it said it in there that the drink problem has been solved. It comes strongly, right? And a 10th step even gets into more of it. But this is when it says there'll come a time that the only thing that's going to stand between you and a drink is your relationship with God. That's it. So it's not all these people. You can't put these people in your pocket. The truth of the matter is, it's actually the 5th step experience that she just read is absolutely in direct, direct opposition to a 5th step of people, sponsor, all that stuff. It's in direct opposite of that. You're getting into God. You're not getting into people. You're going the other way. You're going into a life where you're connected to God.
Well, because at the end of the day, too.
Go ahead.
At the end of the day, you answer to God. So it's like, exactly. I remember there was some things where my sponsor said I could do this, but spiritually it wasn't right for me. Like my debt, just saying I could file bankruptcy.
Sure.
That wasn't right for me. I'm not saying it's, other people, but so ultimately God is the ultimate authority, not a sponsor.
Absolutely. And all the people are going to be going rah, rah, rah over here.
Yeah.
And now everybody's over here, and now you're back into peer pressure again. How are you going to ever stand by yourself? How are you ever going to be your own person? How are you ever going to, just going to be a sheep and you're going to be acting, you're going to get back into acting again. They act spiritual. It's a difference than being able to stand up and you don't have to be rude about it. Because remember, God's building soldiers here. He's building people that can bring something. What are you going to be? Just say what everybody else says and mimic whatever. You're going to be hopefully getting into a place where it says in the 7th step, when it says, as I go out and do your bidding. So there's a huge thing of what we're trying to do here and where we're moving. Anyway, so we're pretty much done for today, right?
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to like, share, please comments, any kind of questions. If you want, whatever you want to put out there, we can go back and forth. Anything, maybe your experience. So it's subscribe, follow, share, comment. And thank you for everybody showing up. Next week we will get into 6, a little bit 6 and 7. It's going to be probably, they're kind of one leads into the other. They all lead into, it's almost hard to talk about one step without talking about the 2 steps following. It's like today, we're going to talk about today. Well, yesterday and tomorrow are kind of like involved. You know what I mean? It's like the trifecta. Anyway, so we will see you next week. Thank you, and I appreciate it.